Way.
Yeah, no worries. So if we just go to sort of the itinerary of the things that I'm just going to cover, Alex, just advance the slide on for me, mate. I'm going to start off from memory, I think, on the just touching on the Fisheries Improvement Fund. Some examples of projects that we've done in GMMC, and encourage you really, if you've got ideas for projects and stuff, to use that resource. It's a tremendous project pot that's there for angling trust clubs to make use of. Run through a few incidents and things with you out of interest, really show you what's been going on in the last couple of months through the summer and what have you. Won't come as any great surprise, but we have had a few little interesting things. A little bit of an enforcement summary, and also a little bit later on in the presentation, we've got some signage that's been put together by our national team, all paid for by rod licence money. That again is free to any club, but it's with a focus on anti-poaching, fish removal, fish theft. So, you know, basically getting those messages out there. Also closed season signage, but it's, you know, we'll run through that a little bit later, and then on to local team changes. So sorry, I've skipped the wider organisational themes out, just what's happening in the Environment Agency Fisheries world on a national platform, and then we'll go back to local team changes. So onto the Fisheries Improvement Fund. So really, this is a case study of a local club. It was Newtonley Willows Anglers that put a bid in for the Fisheries Improvement, for some money from the Fisheries Improvement Fund. They had an idea that they wanted to improve one of their sort of complexes, which I think has got about 3, maybe 4 pools on it, with the idea of making it more accessible to less able anglers, to junior fishermen. It was good as it was. You know, the pegs were nothing more than sort of paving slabs. The pathways were lots of routes on there, you know, obstacles and things like that. So they had a very young, motivated chap, John Austin, who decided we're going to look at the Cowhay Pools complex and see if we can get this money to do these access improvements. So he filled out the form and he was awarded £5,000 from the fund. His bid was successful. And again, so I'm not going to cover all ground, but that was the raison d'etre of his bid, was to improve access. Everything was sold on the inclusivity of angling for all people, less abled anglers, and they've made a really, really good job of it. So to sort of sell that project and sell what is possible to you, and perhaps you will all maybe have an idea of maybe access improvements or something that could be improved at your fisheries, then I would urge you to make use of that that pot of money and put a bid together. It is rod licence payers' money. It is there on one side. It's allocated to that fund, and it is there for you to make use of. So yeah, get your thinking caps on, and I'll show you now what Newtonley Willows anglers have managed to achieve and the sort of standard of the works that they've completed with really what is quite a modest amount of money. Newtonley Willows contributed man-time labour to the project, so that was on top of the 5k. They had a friendly plant hire person through a member of the club, which was plant contributed at reduced rates, and basically they kept all the bills and whatever and delivered the entire project, I think, for 3 lakes for the 5k. So if you just jump on a slide there for me, Alex. Yeah, this is obviously the map of the amount of pegs. I'm not entirely sure, but I think they've managed to do about in the region of 25 to 30 pegs throughout the whole complex, and also managed to pay for this nice flashy sign. But if you just jump on a little bit, they've made some double pegs as well out of timbers and scaffold poles, proper platforms with kickboards at the front. Just go back one, mate. Alex, you just rattled on a little bit too much. That's it. So they've ripped all the old rotten pegs out and built proper good platforms with a kickboard at the front, which is to British disabled anglers sort of standards, so people are not rolling in off wheelchairs and what have you. Again, properly sturdy construction with scaffolding poles, etc. Go on, Alex. And then they have put proper timber pegs at the front there, again with the kick rails, but they have put proper made paths in leading up to them, so that people who are struggling for walking and things like that, or pulling trolleys or wheelchairs can actually, it's all level, it's all flat, it's all proper crushed rolled stone. Made a really, really good job of it and improved the access to those waters no end. So well done, Newtonley Willows. I think there's another slide with a picture showing that this was partial complete of a run of pegs, and that is the completed run. Brilliant job, really, really good. Improved that fishery no end. So yeah, there are other, but basically, if you have an idea, get it down on paper. If it will improve your fishery, get a bid in for it. So right. I think we'll just move on then from Newton. They've done a really good job. In area, it's not an insignificant amount of money. I think in 2020, in the financial year, we got within GMMC area, the total award was in the region of £40,000 to be contributed to club projects, and part of that went to an environmental DNA study that the Mersey Rivers Trust completed. This year, I think we've got slightly less, but roughly about £30,000 for still water projects that have been approved so far. We've got £10,000 that's been approved for a river project, and also £30,000 to improve the Farndon River D pegs, the free pegs down there. So yeah, get onto the website on the Angling Trust, get a form downloaded, get your ideas together, put a bid in, and who knows what can happen. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, on to incidents. In addition to the sort of usual illegal fishing and unlicensed fishing incidents, we've had a few sort of unusual, I would say, occurrences. One of the ones that sticks in my mind, and I believe it might have made the Angling Times, is we had a large number and very large individuals of bream stuck below a V-notch weir in Lee, just below Pennington Flash. Now, I think we were looking at the report that was made to us was about 200 fish in the sort of 4 to 8 pound bracket. We had a look and decided that in the fishers' interest, because they were in quite shallow water, we believed that large shoal of bream had actually moved out of Pennington Flash and migrated down Pennington Brook at spawning time when the flows were considerably higher. And then as the water levels have reduced, that shoal has started to make its way back up the river and then become stuck below a V-notch weir. And it's also put a bit of a pin on the map for me in terms of the passability of that structure, and we'll be looking at maybe making some improvements to that old gauging weir to try and make it more passable to the bream. They just didn't have sufficient, the bodies were so big, and the sort of strength that it needed to push up against that water flow coming over that V-notch. They just couldn't make it back. So we ended up putting a netting team in there for 2 days, one Friday and one Monday, where I think we netted out about 150 large bream and drove them then up to the Pennington Flash and released them. So that was one of the more unusual sort of summer incidents that we've encountered this year. And again, it's just highlighted the importance of the passability of structures, and how much fish will come out of still water bodies when flows are high, and utilise connected watercourses. So that's me posing with one of the bream that we decided to relocate. Obviously, they were highly visible where they were. People were starting to fish for them. They were vulnerable where they were. And the best decision really to preserve that stock of fish was to get them somewhere that was more suitable. Obviously, they were attracted to that area because of the oxygenated water, but they definitely stood a much better chance of being left alone and unmolested, being returned into the Flash. So that was one of the more unusual ones that we've dealt with. We have had, just skip on the next slide, please, Alex. I think we have had, that's James with one of the bream that was returned to the Flash. James is one of our new recruits. So that just gives you a sort of idea of the size, really. They were substantial fish for what is quite a small watercourse at that point in the catchment. So go on, Alex, please, jump on one. Our more familiar sort of summer incidents, this is Stamford Park, fish in distress. We ended up putting aeration out on there. Again, we've still got all our pumps and our gas cylinders and aerator pods, and the angling club sort of sent the maroon up that all the fish were struggling. So we deployed aeration on there for about 4 days just to get them through the worst of it. Very shallow Park Lake, former Victorian boating lake, quite high stock density, and the fish starting to struggle in the sort of the shallow, weedy water. So they spotted it, and we put out our aeration on there. Next slide, please, Alex. That's the back of Paul Bennett's head, showing a bit closer view of our generators and equipment. All of it's based at, most of it is based at Winsford Depot now these days in Cheshire. We do have a small stock of it back at Bedford Depot in Lee. Usually we can deploy it within a couple of hours to wherever it needs to go. But that's still all there, still available to clubs that require it. We are trying to push clubs into at least getting some form of temporary aerator. It may be the case that you may notice that fish are in distress a lot earlier than we can attend. We may be busy dealing with something else. We may have limited staff on. At least if you have some form of water pump and a simple spray bar that you can just start breathing a little bit more oxygen into your fishery and buy yourself a bit of time. It could be just simply a petrol pump. It doesn't have to be a gas generator like ours. Any form of aeration is better than none. So that's a sort of little message there. If we skip on to the next slide, this is blue-green algae in St Helens. I've been doing an awful lot of sort of fishery management advice and working with St Helens Angling Club on trying to combat this blue-green algal bloom. This has been ongoing since, believe it or not, November last year. Exactly what type of algae it is, we are still unsure. It is a blue-green. It is extremely persistent. There is something about the chemistry of the water in that particular arm of that catchment that makes it extremely persistent. The bloom started in the winter. It only started to appear in sort of November. We had a brief respite where it started to look a little bit better just after Christmas. And then as soon as the day length started to increase in sort of early February, it was back again with a vengeance. Now, the Angling Club have introduced barley straw bales. They've took on board my advice of breaking it up into sausages to give it better contact with the water. They have suspended it at the surface air interface where the biological breakdown is optimum. And still this stuff keeps perpetuating. The barley straw, I've got a lad in our analysis and reporting team that's actually looking into the lake and the lake above it in the catchment as a case study for his Institute of Fisheries Management diploma. And he informs me that the algal cells are smaller since they've introduced the barley straw, but they haven't completely disappeared. So this is very much a work in progress. And normally barley straw will sort out and control blue-green algae, but this one seems to be an extremely persistent variety. So that is of interest, or may not be of interest to you, but that just gives you kind of flavour of what we're sort of what we're about and what's been happening throughout the catchment. Next topic, please, Alex. Enforcement. So since COVID arrived and you know, we had to don all our extra PPE, it really did encumber license checking to a fair degree. I didn't enjoy wearing all that PPE, as you can imagine. It's bad enough walking around in a vest and a tactical vest. It's hot enough, but when you add that to add a face mask into the mix and a visor into the mix, and nobody can hear a word you're saying, it's extremely frustrating. But nonetheless, we did get out, less than pre-COVID, but we did get out, and we were still actively checking licenses. Next slide, please, Alex. Nationally, so this year's Clampdown 9, which is the initiative for the closed season patrols, I think there was about 600 or so patrols conducted. This is a national statistic. So nationally, 608 patrols were done in the closed season in the first 10 weeks, and that yielded 214 offences. Within area, it did seem that every time we had a closed season patrol, there was very few people out on the bank. I managed to get out on the Dee a couple of times and on the Mersey. The Mersey, I don't think there was anybody fishing in the closed season when we undertook a couple of boat patrols on there. The Dee, I did have a couple of offences. I think we probably did about 7 closed season patrols by boat and others on foot. The exact number I can't quote to you. But that's just a little update on what's been happening on the closed season and Clampdown 9. Next slide, please, Alex. This was one of our River Dee patrols. This is Ashley Tether from Cheshire Police's Wildlife and Rural Crime Unit. They're very proactive in working with us. We've been up regularly, or quite often on the Dee with them, and in other locations. Very, very keen to work with us and get out. On that particular day, I believe the VBS were also out with us. And I believe that was a day when I think I had two closed season offences, one of which was a rod licence offence as well. I've not had any outcome on those cases yet because they are still in process. But yeah, so we have been out. We have been booking them. And if you just pop the next slide on, this is a group photo. It was a bit like it was a cast of thousands for that particular boat day. We had the council enforcement boat out, Cheshire West Council enforcement boat checking boat licences, Cheshire Police Rural and Wildlife Crime Team, a couple of police vehicles. We had the Voluntary Bailiff Service Fisheries Enforcement Support Service out with us. They were eyes and ears looking at where people were perhaps fishing. They went and checked the canal at Chester as well. So good turnout on these organised events. Next slide, please, Alex. Onto my free fishery signage. yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier when I was just running through sort of the itinerary, it's all funded by rod licence money. It is free to angling clubs and Angling Trust VBS volunteers, anybody who can make use of it, really. Its current livery, there is a mixture of polycarbonate signs and metal signs. Some are designed to go on a post, some are designed to be flush fit. I think there's a picture of them on the next slide that might make a little bit more easier to understand if I actually talk about them while looking at them. So there we go. So top left is one of our polycarbonate closed season signs. Obviously, it's no longer closed season, but we still have a stock of these coming for the next closed season. Feel free to drop me an email. I'll share my email address with you after the presentation, and you can come and collect these, or we can get them out to you in readiness for next closed season. If you've got a stretch of the river that you want to advertise that it's closed season, get these up. They are polycarbonate. They do make a lovely thwack sound when hit with a low caliber air pistol or such like, and they go straight through them. So they're really only designed to last a season. The metal ones, so top right and bottom left, are metal signs. The top right is designed to go on a post, so it's supplied with the U-bolts and the stainless steel snap-off security hex bolts. All you need is a post, really, to clip it onto, gets the message across. I think we also have the do not steal fish and no fishing for food signage in a post style as well. But that bottom left one is aimed at, obviously, language barriers, getting the sort of message across without having to do lengthy translations and huge, great big signs. So again, they can be flush fit and fixed to a flat surface. So I'll share my email address with you after the presentation. Anybody who would like some of these, we can't supply hundreds, but certainly let me know your requirements, and I can try and sort you out as best I can. Next slide, please, Alex. So in the wider organisation, there's actually a fisheries enforcement review going on at the moment. It's being undertaken by our head of National Enforcement Service, Heidi Stone. They are looking at fisheries delivery by the Environment Agency on a national front. They are trying to work out ways it could be improved, look at ways of working that are working, that aren't working, and hopefully the conclusions of which will improve the fisheries service delivered by the Environment Agency as a whole. The contributors to it, Tracy Butler used to work in our enforcement team, our rod licence and prosecutions team in Richard Fairclough House. And Kai Jerem is one of our own. He is a fisheries technical officer that now works at National, has a good, solid understanding of the challenges and how the boots on the ground job actually runs. So we're all quite sort of optimistic that maybe things will come out of this National Fisheries Enforcement Review that will improve the business. So that's what's going on nationally. There are other national themes. If you skip on to the next slide, please, Alex, which I believe is Operation or Project Remora. This is not quite as exciting. As an aside, you'll probably all be aware that a remora fish has a sucker on its head, and it follows larger fish round which cannot get rid of it, and basically it just feeds on the little bits that when they have a meal. I don't think they could have come up with a better name for this project. It was wheeled out nationally earlier in the year, of which we've had a couple of rounds of it now, and it just will not go away. It sticks like glue. So what it's about, it's a national project to look at all the fisheries site permits up and down the country. Every area is being tasked to look at a set of their site permits to check them for correctness. So basically, this is just to tighten up on any clerical errors, any sort of changes in license holder, permit holder details, to make sure that the permits accurately reflect the condition at the fisheries and that they are correct. We've had quite a few problems with some site permits being unenforceable. Some site permits, their holders have moved on or sadly passed away. So it is a big project to review them and make sure that they're correct. If at some point, obviously, if you're associated with angling clubs, you will have or should have site permits for your waters, then don't be too surprised if you get a phone call from a fisheries officer at some point in the future, just wanting to clarify the details of your site permits and make sure that they're up to date with you. So I've had to go through quite a few of my clubs, Newton being one, Warrington being another, and we're just working our way, plodding our way through them methodically, as and when we get the next batch through. So they are in the pipeline and being progressed. Alex? Right, on to fisheries staff and team changes in our area. So next slide, please. So we've put 3 of our old stalwarts out to pasture, many of which will be be known to you and familiar names to you. The 3 amigos, or the 3 stooges, or perhaps, if you will, the good, the bad and the ugly, and I'll let you decide who fits the bill best. I'll also let you do the maths. We've had 3 retirements within our team, yet only 2 recruits. We currently have a post that has not been filled, and our 2 new recruits, one of which is on the call this evening. We've got James Grosskirth, who's come to us from Environment Management, and he has now taken over what used to be Paul Blake's patch, Weaver Dane. And we've also on the call now got Mike Frankland. He's joined us from Ops Delivery and has taken over the Crowell Irwell patch, which used to be, excuse me, used to be Ian Hayes's patch. And I think on the next slide, it would be pertinent to me for me to let Mike take over the reins and let him introduce himself. On the left, we've got James Grosskirth, sorry. He is a keen butterfly catching enthusiast by the looks of it. Don't let the waving around of a pink net fool you. He knows his stuff. He's a good lad, and yeah, he's a welcome addition to the team. And so is Mike. And Mike, if you would like to take over and introduce yourself and give the guys and girls a little bit of an intro.
Yeah, here's Woody. Yeah, so I'm the new fisheries officer for and also I've got road check and medal as well. I've worked for the Environment Agency for 10 years now. Spent the last 7 in field ops working on flood defences, so pretty clued up on rivers in my catchment because they were the main rivers that I worked on in flood defence, so I know all about the issues. So since I started in fisheries, I've mainly been involved in the project Remora, learning that and taking a lead on it, helping others out through it. And yeah, it's slow progress, but we are getting through it. And also, I've been working on the fishery improvement funds, like learning about them, getting used to how it works, and speaking to clubs, giving them advice, and keeping up to date and how the applications are progressing. Like Ian said, it's a really good way to get funding for your club. I didn't realise it was available till I joined fisheries, and now, yeah, it's a no-brainer to me for clubs. It's a great incentive to get improvements on the lake. Also, I've been working on my SAFA warrant, so hopefully, fingers crossed, in the near future, I should be warranted and should be able to get out checking rod licences with the others. And also, I've been getting out to some clubs in my catchment finally. Been itching to get out and meet people in the area. Been giving advice and guidance on all the issues that they've been having, and I hope to get out more soon and beat the rest I haven't been and get round all the other waters in my area. Over, I'm a keen angler. I've been since I was a kid. Been in most clubs in Cheshire, catfishing all over like the new norm these days. But yeah, it's my passion and I love everything about fishing. So thanks for listening to me, and I hope to meet some of you soon.
Brilliant, thanks, Mike. Awesome. I think if we just move on, I'll sort of closing the presentation. Last slide or next slide. That's fine. That's great. So currently in Greater Manchester, Merseyside, Cheshire Fisheries team, we've got our team leader, Paul Siddle. Below him, or an equivalent level, sits our technical specialist, Kevin Nash. And then that's what it looks like on the ground these days. We've got 6 fisheries officers. James and Mike are obviously our additions. And then we've got myself, Graham, Trevor and Paul Bennett, which I'm sure will all be familiar to you. On a last note, and lastly, it's with great deal of sadness that I've got to share the news of the passing of one of our fisheries colleagues, Darren Bedworth, with you. After incredibly short illness earlier this year, I'm sure many of you will have spoken to him or dealt with him at some time or another. In latter years, Darren was the technical specialist for Cumbria and Lancashire fisheries team. However, he was my team leader in fisheries in Greater Manchester, Merseyside, Cheshire for a good number of years. Incidentally, when the Mersey Gillnet case came off, he backed myself and our team all the way with it, and I dare say we wouldn't have been able to carry out that successful operation without him. He was a fisherman, a family man, and absolutely fisheries through and through. And he's done a tremendous amount for the world of fisheries, and he will be greatly missed. So on a rather sad note, I have to sort of conclude with that news. But yeah, Darren Bedworth.